The World Cup is finally here.
And enjoy it. Very, very much.
Every 4 years, the footballing world resets. The hierarchy is clear, but the stakes are higher than ever.
If you ask me, Cristiano, is it a dream to win the World Cup? No, it's not a dream. Really? Yes.
We have the heavyweights: Spain, Argentina, France,
He's played into Mbappe territory. Goalkeeper
and Portugal. These are the sides with the tactical depth and raw quality to actually go all the way. Pure class across the pitch. Then you have the usual suspects, the ones destined to let their fans down. Brazil and Mexico always carry massive expectations, but they often struggle when the pressure hits the boiling point.
Hey, Buzz! You're flying!
This isn't flying, this is falling with style.
And of course, England, the absolute kings of bottling it on the big stage.
What's up, baby?
What's your problem? You didn't win.
A squad full of ballers, yet always one tactical lapse away from a disaster.
to Nakamura cross.
There are also the sides nobody wants to draw, Germany and the Netherlands.
And I will not be bullied by that!
Teams that might not be favourites on paper, but their structural discipline makes them a proper nightmare in the knockout rounds. Keep an eye on the dark horses: Norway, Morocco, Ecuador and Japan.
You can't do this to me, you can't!
They aren't here just to participate, they have the tactical identity to cause a real stir and upset the established order. This tournament is a mix of everything. The entertainers, the exotic underdogs, and the ones already condemned by the draw. We're seeing legends preparing for one last dance. While the heirs to the throne are ready to claim their spot. This is your ultimate tactical guide to the 2026 World Cup. Let's get into the specifics of the first nation on our list, Mexico. El Tri is a World Cup staple.
X, aka long, tan, and handsome.
In terms of pure tournament experience, they are a proper heavyweight, trailing only the likes of Germany, Brazil, Italy, and Argentina for total appearances. Historically, their ceiling has been the quarterfinals, reached only as hosts in 1970 and 1986. Breaking that barrier has become the ultimate obsession for the Mexican FA.
And I'd be like, why are you so obsessed with me?
This is a side that thrives on the big stage, but often lacks the clinical edge to finish the job. We've seen the highs Manuel Negre's iconic volley against Belgium, the tactical dismantling of France in 2010, and that massive upset against the reigning champions Germany in 2018. But for every moment of brilliance, there's a massive collapse. Mexico has a habit of bottling it exactly when they are the nailed-on favourites. Losing to Bulgaria in '94 and the bitter defeat to the USA in 2002 remain huge scars on their footballing psyche. Bad luck has also played a massive part in their story. In 2006, they arguably outplayed Argentina, only to be dumped out by an absolute screamer from Maxi Rodriguez, a goal that defied physics. In Brazil 2014, the heartbreak reached a different level. After a flawless group stage, they had the Netherlands on the ropes in the round of 16. They held the lead, controlled the tempo, and looked destined for the next round, until the final 10 minutes became a tactical horror show. Wesley Sneijder's equaliser was followed by one of the most controversial refereeing decisions in World Cup history. Arjen Robben went down, the penalty was given, and despite the no-era penal cries that still haunt the fans, Mexico was sent packing once again. Heading into 2026, the weight of the attack sits on Raúl Jiménez. He's the veteran leader for a fresh crop of young ballers who bring plenty of technical quality to the squad. Looking at their group and the potential knockout brackets, the data suggests this could technically be the best World Cup run in the country's history. However, with Mexico, the golden rule remains: don't get your hopes up until the final whistle blows.
What are you smiling about?
Dude, I almost had you.
Next up in Group A, we have South Africa. To be blunt, the Bafana haven't pulled up many trees on the world stage since Morgan Freeman watched them lift a trophy against New Zealand. Their World Cup history is thin, with only 3 appearances in '98, 2002 and 2010. Even as hosts in 2010, where they played that famous opening match against Mexico, they failed to make it out of the group. In fact, they've been sent packing in the first round in every single edition they've contested.
Where's Dewey? Dewey, get out of there. That's not your family.
The burden of changing that narrative falls squarely on Lyle Foster. The Burnley striker is a proper handful in the final third, and South Africa's hopes of a respectable 2026 run rely almost entirely on his ability to find the back of the net. Then we have South Korea, a side that has become a permanent fixture of the tournament. After a long absence following their debut in '54, they returned for Mexico '86 and haven't missed a single World Cup since. That's a staggering level of consistency, trailing only the elite tier of Brazil, Germany, Argentina, and Spain for consecutive appearances. Historically, their high watermark remains the 2002 tournament on home soil. It was a run defined by incredible energy, but marred by massive controversy. Reaching the semi-finals was a historic feat, but the tactical reality of their quarter-final win over Spain is often overshadowed by some seriously dodgy officiating.
Oh, you're having a bad day? Did you die?
More recently, they proved they still have the technical quality to compete by navigating a difficult group in Qatar 2022. The undisputed talisman is Heung-min Son. Now playing his football with LAFC, Son remains an absolute baller with a technical ceiling that most players can only dream of. His ability to produce a moment of magic out of nothing is what makes Korea a genuine threat to anyone in this group. Returning to the big time after a 20-year hiatus is the Czech Republic. We haven't seen them at a World Cup since their group stage exit in Germany 2006.
You're as beautiful as a day I love.
While their recent record is spotty, their historical pedigree under the banner of Czechoslovakia's elite.
Wheezy? Is that you?
Hey, Woody.
They were runners-up in 1934, losing a tight final to Italy. And again in 1962, where they fell 3-1 to a legendary Brazilian side.
Ging eindeutig auf das Konto von Schroef. Von der Sonne geblieben.
This version of the squad is looking to reclaim some of that lost glory. In Patrick Schick, they have a clinical finisher who knows exactly how to lead the line. The Bayer Leverkusen man is a top 5 all-time scorer for his country, and despite his pedigree, this will be his first ever World Cup. He is the focal point of everything they do, structurally. When you look at the tactical balance of Group A, the data points to Mexico and South Korea as the clear favourites to progress, but the return of the Czechs adds a layer of unpredictability that shouldn't be ignored. Moving into Group B, where the co-hosts are looking to prove they belong on the big stage. For a long time, Canada was strictly a hockey nation.
People keep asking if I'm nervous. Buddy, I'm Canadian. I was born in a snowbank wearing skates.
Football was an afterthought, but the narrative is shifting, and the Canucks are desperate to show they can actually play.
Alfonso Davies keeps it himself.
Their World Cup record is, frankly, dismal. Across 2 appearances in '86 and 2022, they've lost all 6 matches. 0 points. Their only goal in tournament history came in Qatar, which serves as a grim reminder of the gap they need to bridge. However, 2022 wasn't all bad. They showed glimpses of a brave, high-pressing offensive style that caught a few heavyweights off guard. Now, as co-hosts, the pressure is on to turn that potential into actual results. The tactical blueprint for Canada relies on 2 genuine world-class ballers, Alfonso Davies and Jonathan David. Davies provides that explosive pace from deep, while David is a clinical finisher who can exploit the smallest gaps in a defensive line. If they want to survive the group, these 2 need to be at the absolute top of their game. Joining them in Group B is Bosnia and Herzegovina. Their only previous World Cup appearance was in 2014, a tournament mostly remembered for messy scoring, an absolute screamer against them. But don't let that fool you into thinking they're pushovers. This side has a habit of punching above its weight, most recently causing a massive shock by knocking Italy out of the playoffs. They are a stubborn, technically sound unit that knows how to frustrate the big boys.
They stole it from me, Carmine! They took it! That was today! Today!
Then we have Qatar, entering their 2nd ever World Cup. After the massive spectacle of hosting the tournament in 2022, they're no longer the new kids on the block. While they lack the historical pedigree of their rivals, they've spent years building a system designed for cohesion and tactical familiarity. Finally, we have Switzerland, the representative of the most expensive country on the planet.
There's rocks. There's whale poo. And then there's you.
The Swiss are World Cup veterans, with 12 appearances dating back to 1934. They've always been a side defined by structural integrity and consistency.
Dodson! Dodson! We've got Dodson here! See, nobody cares.
Now we have to talk about Group C, and specifically, we have to talk about Brazil. The Selecao lost their superpowers the moment their players stopped being party animals and rebels.
¿A ti te gusta así como está el mío? Sí, ¿y el de ella?
Mejor todavía.
But in all seriousness, you cannot discuss the World Cup without discussing Brazil. They are the most successful nation in footballing history and the only side to have featured in every single one of the 22 editions. Their legacy is defined by moments that are etched into the sport's folklore. We've seen it all. Ronaldinho's audacious lob in 2002, Ronaldo Nazario silencing his demons in the final against Germany, Carlos Alberto finishing that sublime team move in Mexico 70. And the most iconic of them all, breakout brilliance in Sweden 58. However, the terrifying aura that once surrounded the likes of Zico, Kaká, Neymar, Adriano and Ronaldinho has arguably faded. Today's Brazil is a different beast entirely, and the tactical reality is quite sobering for a nation that demands perfection. Much of their hope rests on Vinicius Jr., but the numbers tell a complicated story for a supposed talisman. With just 8 goals and 8 assists in 47 appearances, Vinny hasn't yet translated his club dominance to the international stage.
Fighting style favorite catchphrase is everything! I am your #1 fan!
The hard truth is that he isn't Neymar. He isn't Ronaldinho.
Ronaldinho Gaúcho insiste con el balón. Qué jugada de loco la hizo. Ronaldinho Gaúcho insiste, le va a pegar a mandó.
And he certainly isn't R9. While he is a world-class winger, he isn't a player who can consistently drag a team to victory on his own. He is a cog in a machine that requires perfect calibration. For Brazil to actually contend for the trophy, Carlo Ancelotti has to find a way to ignite the rest of the front line and create a more balanced defensive structure. The creative burden cannot sit on Vini's shoulders alone. The magic needs to be shared between Rafinha, Endrick, Matheus Cunha, Ryan and João Pedro.
Forward, the Quexter of the courts, Daphne Duck.
Thank you! Thank you!
Brazil is no longer a collection of individual miracles capable of winning by pure talent. They are now a side that desperately needs a cohesive tactical system to maximise their high potential ballers. Forget that rubbish level of football we saw in Group B. Group C is where the real drama lives, because joining Brazil is the ultimate giant killer, Morocco.
I have waited for this day.
These lads were the undisputed dark horses of Qatar, sending Portugal and Spain packing on their way to a historic semi-final. They even managed to win a continental final while technically losing on the scoreboard. Don't ask how, just know they're built different. Tactically, they are a nightmare to break down. You've got Yacine Bounou, an absolute wall in goal, and Achraf Hakimi, who is arguably the best right-back on the planet right now. And let's talk about Brahim Diaz. The man is a specialist from the spot. If it goes to penalties, he's ice cold.
Viven en un country. Andan en BMW para arriba. Los fines de semana se a las mejores minas. Morfan bien todos los días. El día anterior al partido durmieron tranquilamente en un hotel 5 estrellas y se rascaron durante 24 horas sin hacer nada, jugando al ping-pong y al pool y a la play.
Sorry, Senegal, but Morocco is comfortably the best side in Africa at the moment. Then we have Scotland. Look, these guys basically invented the game, but their trophy cabinet doesn't exactly reflect that history.
What are you doing in my swamp?
The passion from the Tartan army is world-class, even if the results usually aren't. But this time things feel a bit different. The legendary John McGinn finally has some proper backup. We're talking about Scott McTominay, the reigning Serie A MVP and the architect behind one of the most mental UEFA qualifying runs we've ever seen. He's been absolutely cooking in Italy, and he's the reason Scotland is back on the big stage. Cheers, lads, the Scots are here to make some noise. And finally, we have Haiti, a genuine footballing miracle. Honestly, most people will probably end up watching their highlights on the Orange site, because let's be real, we all know exactly what's going to happen to them in this group. It's going to be a long tournament for the Haitians. Let's talk about Group D, where the real hosts of this tournament reside.
Get it!
Where'd it go?
The US men's national team has a bit of a weird history with the World Cup. They lack the consistent presence of someone like Mexico, but ironically, they've actually gone further in the tournament than their rivals on 2 separate occasions. We're talking about a side that reached a semi-final in the early days and pulled off that legendary massive upset against England in 1950. And of course, we can't forget the Doza 0 in Korea, 2002 still arguably the biggest result in their history.
You are a toy!
On paper, this USMN T squad looks like a proper unit. You've got Chris Richards and Anthony Robinson holding it down in the backline, providing a decent mix of physical presence and pace. The engine room's equally interesting, with Weston McKennie's energy paired with Timothy Weir and Malik Tillman. Up top, they've got genuine quality with Christian Pulisic, Ricardo Pepi, and the technical flair of Gio Reyna. Structurally, it's a solid setup, but the reality on the pitch is often a total nightmare. This team is the definition of inconsistent. They are perfectly capable of putting Uruguay to the sword one week, only to be absolutely humiliated by Belgium or Portugal the next.
El balón hacia el área, una vez más el servicio en diagonal que daba para el...
There is no middle ground with these lads. God bless America.
I know we suck. I don't know how to work as a team.
But unless they find some tactical discipline, they are going to struggle to do anything meaningful in their own backyard. The rest of the group is pure chaos. You've got Paraguay, who are basically the South American version of the US, completely hit or miss. They scrape through CONMEBOL in 6th place, but you can't completely write them off in a group that features New Zealand and an unpredictable American side. But let's be real, the true protagonists of Group D are Turkey. This squad is absolutely stacked with technical ballers and is easily the favourite to walk away with the top spot. When you've got Arda Güler and Kenan Yildiz providing that creative spark, Hakan Çalhanoğlu pulling the strings in the middle, and the likes of Kerem Aktürkoğlu and Ferdi Kadıoğlu flying in transition, you're looking at a serious problem for any defence. Turkey isn't just here to participate, they have the clinical edge to dominate this group from start to finish. Now we're talking about a proper group of death.
Hey, little pig. Boo.
First up, Germany, 4-time winners, but
And his guts
let's be honest, they've been in the wilderness lately. 2 consecutive World Cups getting dumped out in the group stages is unheard of for a nation of their stature. They are desperate to end this period of uncertainty and prove that the Mannschaft is still a powerhouse.
Remember who you are. You are my son.
This 2026 squad isn't quite the unstoppable machine we saw in 2014, but you'd be a fool to write them off. They've got a new generation of ballers who don't know what fear looks like. We're talking about Florian Wirtz and Jamal Musiala, 2 of the most creative sparks in world football, alongside the experience of Joshua Kimmich, the clinical, if sometimes frustrating Kai Havertz, and the spectacular Walter Maid. Keep an eye on the youngster Lennart Karl too. This lot are technically gifted and hungry to flip the script on American soil, but Germany won't have it easy because they're sharing a group with arguably the best Ecuador side in history.
I'm big. I'm big. I'm brave. I'm big. I'm beautiful. I'm Yes, thank you. Come here, give me huggies. Thank you.
This team is an absolute unit. They've got Piero Hincapié bossing it at Arsenal and the European champion William Pacho in the heart of the defence. In the middle, they've got one of the Premier League's elite playmakers in Moises Caicedo, supported by Joel Ordóñez and the tireless Pervis Estupiñán.
Let's not blow this out.
Tactically, Ecuador is a nightmare to play against. They arrived at this tournament on a 17-game unbeaten streak, and we aren't talking about easy fixtures. They've held their own against the likes of Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, and the Netherlands. Finishing second in the CONMEBOL qualifiers, the toughest qualifying zone on the planet is no fluke. With John Yeboah's flair and Enner Valencia's veteran presence up top, this is a side that expects to go deep. However, Ecuador can't afford a lapse in concentration because Ivory Coast is lurking.
I laugh in the face of danger.
Les Elephants have a serious crop of talent, led by Manchester United's Amad Diallo, and they have the physical and technical profile to cause a massive upset if the big boys blink. As for Curaçao, well, much like Haiti, they'll probably be relegated to the highlights section of the orange site. It's a tough draw for the Minnows, and in a group this stacked, they're likely just here for the scenery. Group F is looking absolutely massive, and leading the way are the Netherlands. They've got that tragic label of being the best side to never actually lift the trophy. With 3 runner-up finishes in 74, 78. In 2010.
Fabregas, surely now, Spain have won the World Cup for the first time in history.
The Orangi are desperate to finally break the curse and stop being the world's most famous bridesmaids. Tactically, this side is built on a rock-solid foundation. Having a backline featuring Mickey van der Ven, Nathan Ake, and Virgil van Dijk is serious business that's a proper wall that most strikers won't want any part of.
Are you serious? Are those nunchucks?
Yeah.
Their midfield is equally stacked with technical quality. Ryan Gravenberch, Quinten Timber, Frenkie de Jong, Tijani Reinders, and Xavi Simons have more than enough flair to dictate play and create chances at will. However, the sharp end of the pitch is where things start to look a bit mid. Cody Gakpo is struggling for form at the worst possible time. And let's be honest, relying on Doniel Malen or Wout Weghorst as your primary goal scorers feels a bit average for a team with title ambitions. The Dutch won't have a stroll in the park though, because Group F contains the ultimate dark horse, Japan. As a collective unit, the Samurai Blue are arguably the most disciplined and fluid side in the tournament. Their recent track record is frightening. They've absolutely battered the likes of Bolivia and picked up massive wins against England,
Side. Ueda is waiting in the centre. Here's Mitoma.
Scotland, Ghana, and even Brazil. They only tasted one defeat since 2024. If you are looking for a team to cause a tactical meltdown for the European giants, keep your eyes on Japan.
You know who I am, boy?
Yeah. You like the Justin Timberlake of Japan, right?
But the competition for the giant killer spot doesn't stop there. Sweden is back on the world stage, and they've brought a literal cheat code in Victor Gyökeres.
Drago's kid. Big, fast, strong, unorthodox. It's a monster, boy. It's a balanced breakfast over there.
The man is a goal-scoring machine, bagging 4 goals in just 2 matches to drag the Swedes into the tournament. If Alexander Isak can find his rhythm and play like the world-class forward we know he is, and with Anthony Elanga in a state of form that's frankly unsustainable, Sweden becomes a nightmare to defend against. Throw in a wonder kid like Rooney Bargji, and you've got a squad that the Netherlands and Japan cannot afford to sleep on. Mexico fans are probably sending Gyökeres thank you notes for his shift. And as for Tunisia, well, let's just move on. Nobody's really bothered. Moving on to Group G, where Belgium is the undisputed heavyweight favourite. The Red Devils have a long World Cup history, featuring in 14 editions. Their peak was undoubtedly Russia 2018, where they secured 3rd place playing some of the most attractive football on the planet. But let's be honest, that golden generation ultimately walked away with absolutely nothing to show for it. Even so, the remnants of that era are still world class. You've still got Thibaut Courtois, comfortably the best keeper in the world, alongside the likes of Romelu Lukaku, Kevin De Bruyne, and Axel Witsel. Add in the clinical finishing of Dodi Lukebakio and Lois Openda, and you've got a squad with a frightening amount of experience. But the real excitement comes from the new blood. Tactically, Belgium has evolved into a much more dynamic side. Jeremy Doku is arguably the best dribbler in world football right now, a player who can dismantle a low block entirely on his own. When you support him with high-ceiling talents like Amadou Onana, Alexis Sayle-Makers, Nathan Decat, and the spectacular Sene Lamens in goal, you're looking at an incredibly serious outfit. They have the technical depth to dominate possession and the raw pace to kill teams on the break. As for the rest of the group, we're seeing the return of a true African powerhouse, Egypt. This side is built around the talismanic Mohamed Salah and, frankly, his massive ego. But the tactical mystery is Omar Marmoush. In 2026, the man is actually playing better than Erling Haaland at the club level. Yet somehow he still finds himself starting on the bench. The Egyptians will be thanking Imhotep for this draw though, because the competition is paper thin. You've got New Zealand, who are arguably playing worse than San Marino at the moment, and Iran a side that probably doesn't even want to deal with the headache of US customs. In terms of the group standings, Belgium should stroll through this without breaking a sweat, while Salah and the rest of the Egyptian squad really have no excuse not to secure that second spot. It's theirs for the taking. Finally, we move to Group H, where we find one of the massive favourites to actually lift the trophy, Spain.
El Macho.
La Roja is heading into their 17th World Cup, and they've officially reclaimed their status as a global powerhouse. They haven't missed a tournament since '74, which puts them in elite company, alongside the likes of Brazil, Germany, and Argentina. Historically, Spain has been a bit of a mixed bag. You've got 5 early exits contrasting with that legendary 2010 title when their golden generation was at its peak. Since that night in Johannesburg, they've struggled to find that same clinical edge in Brazil,
Aquí solo remote!
Russia, and Qatar. But 2026 feels like the ultimate redemption arc, because this new crop of players is something truly special. Tactically, this squad is absolutely stacked from back to front. In goal, they have David Raya,
Flicks on for Minter!
and Joan Garcia. Arguably the 2 best shot stoppers in the world right now. In the heart of the defence, you've got Pau Kubasi, who is a statistical anomaly. His progressive passing and ball-playing ability from the back are unmatched globally. But it's the midfield where Spain turns from a great side into an unplayable one. They have the 2 best defensive anchors in the Premier League in Rodri and Martin Zubimendi, providing the perfect platform for a creative engine that is frankly unfair. Pedri is technically the best midfielder on the planet. Fermin Lopez is a world-class interior. And Dani Olmo is a specialist in producing the spectacular. Up top, they've finally got the firepower to match the build-up play. Nico Williams turns into prime Neymar the moment he puts on the Spain shirt, and Mikel Oyarzabal has become the ultimate clutch player the man simply doesn't miss in big moments. Then you have the crown jewel, Lamine Yamal. At 16, he basically carried them to a Euro 2024 title. Now, as the undisputed best player in the world and the heir to the footballing throne, he's ready to crown his legacy with a World Cup.
Future's now, old man.
Joining the Spanish in Group H is another former champion, Uruguay. La Celeste is footballing royalty, the pioneers who won the very first World Cup and famously silenced the Maracana in 1950. Their last great run was in 2010 with the iconic trio of Suarez, Cavani and Forlan, but that era is firmly in the past. The reality for Uruguay today is a bit of a roller coaster. On one hand, you have Fede Valverde in his absolute prime. El Pajarito is a world beater, and his engine in the middle of the park should have every manager in this tournament worried. On the other hand, you have Darwin Núñez leading the line. It's a bit of a gamble every time he steps on the pitch. His pace and power are terrifying for defenders, but his finishing's just as likely to scare the life out of his own fans. He is the definition of chaos ball.
Well, maybe it is stupid, but it's also dumb.
Fortunately for the Uruguayans, they've got the power of mate, and a very kind draw. Facing Saudi Arabia and Cape Verde means they should cruise into the knockout rounds alongside Spain without breaking much of a sweat. Now we have to talk about the real deal. Group 1 is
How about another joke, Murray?
No, I think we've had enough of your jokes.
frankly terrifying, and you have to wonder what on earth Iraq is doing here alongside the best side on the planet, the African People's Champions, and a Norwegian squad led by a literal cyborg. Iraq fans, you might want to look away. Your highlights are definitely going to end up on the orange site because this is going to be a massacre. But seriously, this group is a masterpiece of national teams.
It's beautiful.
Let's start with France. When you talk about Les Bleus, you're talking about a side that has become a permanent fixture in the elite since 1998. That iconic win against Brazil with Zidane, Henry and Trezeguet set the standard. They proved it wasn't a fluke in 2006. And then dominated again in 2018 with the likes of Kanté, Mbappé, Pogba and Griezmann. They are nailed-on favourites in every single tournament they enter, but what they're bringing to the 2026 World Cup is just taking the mickey. The depth of this French squad is actually ridiculous. Just look at the attacking options. Hugo Ekitike.
Break from the back. Elise draws defenders. Brilliant ball to Ekitike.
Marcus Thuram.
Here for the French again. Akliouche swinging it in towards Thuram.
Ousmane Dembélé. Désiré Doué,
Thuram chasing it down. Good square. And the shot is.
Ryan Cherki, Kylian Mbappé,
Into Mbappe territory. Goalkeeper comes and a
Michael Olise,
Always look.
Bradley Barcola, and Randall Kolo Muani. Those 9 attacking players have produced a staggering 211 plus goal contributions this season alone.
Bumblebee, stop lubricating the mags.
It's an absolute insult to have that much firepower in one squad. And if that wasn't enough, the rest of the pitch is stacked with world beaters like Adrien Rabiot, Eduardo Camavinga, Aurelien Tchouameni, and the legendary N'Golo Kante. With a backline featuring Theo Hernandez, William Saliba, Jules Koundé, and Mike Maignan in goal, it feels like the trophy is already theirs. Honestly, the only person who could possibly stop France from winning it all is Ibrahima Konate, having a tactical nightmare.
Amazing.
Then we have Norway, a team that has finally found its identity, scoring goals like absolute lunatics.
I'm much happier that way. I'm the world's happiest tool.
You must be proud of yourself, son.
They've earned the respect of the footballing world by becoming the most clinical side on the planet. Their recent record is mental 37 goals scored in just 8 matches, with only 5 conceded. Erling Haaland, the android, is responsible for 16 of those goals. If he carries that form into the tournament, it's going to be unsustainable for any defence to track him. But he's not a one-man show anymore. He's got Martin Odegaard, the perfect playmaker, to feed the beast, plus Alexander Sørloth, Oscar Bob, and Antonio Nusa, who is basically the Neymar from Temu. With Julian Ryerson providing quality service from the wing, Norway has the technical ceiling to outscore anyone. But France and Norway would be foolish to overlook Senegal. The Lions of Teranga have been a force since their 2002 debut, when they shocked the world by reaching the quarter-finals. This time, they're looking to go even further. They arrived here after winning the African Cup on the pitch, only to have the headlines stolen by boardroom drama. But the quality of this offensive army is undeniable.
You want a staff job and you want a staff job. Anybody care about what I want? I do.
With Nicholas Jackson, Ismaila Sarr, and Lamine Camara leading a lethal transition game, supported by a rock-solid spine of Kalidou Koulibaly and Edouard Mendy, they are a physical and tactical nightmare. It seems the only way to beat this Senegal side is in the courtroom, because on the pitch, they are an absolute unit. And as for Iraq, now let's look at Group J, and honestly, you'd have to be blind not to see how this was set up.
I'll kidnap 1,000 children before I let this company die.
Algeria, Austria, and Jordan. Right, because nobody wants to see Messi, and the boys struggle, do they? This is quite literally the easiest group in World Cup history for the Albiceleste. It's a stroll in the park before the tournament even starts. Argentina is heading into their 19th World Cup, and they've left a massive mark on the game's history. 3 titles in the bag, 78 at home. '86 in Mexico, and the crowning glory in Qatar. We've seen it all, the hand of God, the goal of the century.
Maradona turned past 2 and runs away from Reed. And then gets past Butcher and past another, and Maradona goes on!
Maradona's iconic dancing, and the Bidon de Branco. And of course the 2022 World Cup, where Messi basically destroyed everyone in his path. It was a proper masterclass from the GOAT. What makes this Scaloneta side the absolute favourites isn't just the talent, the chemistry. Tactically, they don't play like a typical national team. They play like a club side. They know each other's movements inside out, and the results speak for themselves. After winning back-to-back Copa Americas, they are now chasing a historic double-double back-to-back Continental and World Cup titles.
Oh, you dog. Is there anything this guy can't do?
If they pull this off, they aren't just champions. They are officially the greatest international side in the history of the sport. The squad depth is a joke. You've got a unique mix of veteran steel and fresh legs. Dibu Martinez is still a wall in goal. Cuti Romero, Marcos Senesi, and Otamendi providing that aggressive defensive line. The midfield is pure class with Enzo Fernandez and Alexis McAllister. While the new generation of ballers like Valentin Barco, Ezequiel Palacios, Mastantuono, and the wonder kid Nico Paz are ready to take over. Up top, Julian Alvarez and Jose Manuel Lopez are clinical, and then you have the man himself, Lionel Andres Messi.
Messi giró, qué buena Messi. Busca con Alexis, con Messi. ¡Gol! Claro que sí, hay gol de Messi.
Argentina is clearly going for the repeat. And let's be real, if this squad somehow isn't enough to get the job done, I'm sure FIFA will give them whatever nudge they need to get over the line. Now for Group K, home to a side led by a man who seemingly wants everything except perhaps a World Cup trophy. Portugal. Historically, Portugal's World Cup CV is surprisingly thin. Their peak was way back in '66, when Eusebio took the world by storm to finish third. After that, they basically disappeared from the big stage for decades, failing to qualify for almost every tournament between 1970 and 1998. It wasn't until 2002 that they became a permanent fixture in the competition, but the Portugal side arriving in 2026 is a different beast entirely. This is comfortably the most talented generation they've ever produced.
Grab.
Their defensive line is pure class. Ruben Dias and Gonzalo Inacio are absolute units in the middle, while Nuno Mendes has the technical quality to keep even someone like Lamine Yamal quiet. Add in Mateus Nunes, Guardiola favourite, and Juan Cancelo, arguably the most dangerous offensive fullback in the game, and you have a backline that is elite in every sense. The engine room is where things get really serious. Vitinha is currently operating at a level alongside Pedri as the best midfielder on the planet. When you pair him with PSG's wonder kid João Neves,
Vitinha. Pasado.
and the Premier League's reigning MVP, Bruno Fernandes, you have a midfield that can dictate the tempo of any match. Throw in Sporting's Francisco Trincão for extra flair, and it's a tactical nightmare for the opposition. Up front, the depth is just as frightening. You've got Pedro Neto,
Go on. Get a second.
Francisco Conceição, and João Felix,
This is played in towards the edge of the box. João Felix!
who always seems to find his rhythm for the national team. Then there's Rafael Leao, a literal human gazelle on the wing. And of course, the main man, Cristiano Ronaldo. The Bicho is obsessed with hitting that 1,000 goal milestone at this tournament, though some wonder if he's more focused on his personal record than actually lifting the trophy. Either way, Roberto Martinez has a squad that is a massive threat to the world order. The only real challenge in this group, sorry Uzbekistan, we aren't counting you, comes from Colombia.
You wanna hold my hand?
Los Cafeteros have featured in 6 World Cups and managed to escape the group stages in half of them. They've given us some of the most iconic moments in footballing history. Marcos Cole's Olympic goal in '62, Freddie Rincon's legendary last-minute equaliser against Germany in '90, and James Rodriguez's sublime volley in 2014 that won him the Golden Boot. Of course, it's a history also marked by the tragic shadow of Andres Escobar's own goal. For the 2026 edition, Colombia has 3 standout figures that make them a dangerous out. First, Luis Diaz is having the season of his life at Bayern, racking up a massive 22 goals and 18 assists. He's playing at a superlative level, but the offensive threat doesn't stop there. Luis Suarez is currently a human cannonball at Sporting, bagging 33 goals in 42 matches. This duo is built to give defenders nightmares in transition, and the third guy is James Rodriguez. It's essentially a 2-horse race for the top spot, while the Republic of the Congo has the support of the neutrals. And Uzbekistan is just happy to be here. The reality is that Portugal and Colombia will be the ones dominating the headlines. Finally, we close things out with Group L, featuring the inventors of the game and the undisputed kings of the Bottled It trophy, England.
Open sesame. Well, I've done all I can.
England's history with the World Cup is frankly a bit of a mess. Because of some early rows with FIFA, they missed the first 3 editions and didn't make their debut until 1950. Since then, they've featured 16 times, but that lone 1966 trophy in their own backyard remains the only bit of silverware in the cabinet. Despite producing world-class talent in every era, they've largely underwhelmed, with only a couple of 4th place finishes in 90 and 18 to show for their efforts. We've seen legendary generations fail. The era of Lampard, Gerrard and Rooney couldn't get it done. The current crop, led by Harry Kane and Bukayo Saka, has come agonisingly close a semi-final in Russia and 2 consecutive Euro final heartbreaks against Italy and Spain. But heading into 2026, the 3 Lions are arguably more stacked than ever. Harry Kane is entering this tournament as the best striker on the planet, putting up a ridiculous 48 goals and 5 assists in just 40 matches. That's clinical. Behind him, the support is absolute class. You've got Noni Madueke, Bukayo Saka and Declan Rice currently dragging Arsenal toward a Premier League title. In the middle, the technical ceiling of Jude Bellingham, Phil Foden, Cole Palmer, Kobbie Mainoo, Adam Wharton and Alito Anderson is frankly illegal. Then you have the pace of Marcus Rashford and the golazo specialist Morgan Rogers. Under Thomas Tuchel, the big question is whether this gaffer can finally turn this collection of ballers into a ruthless winning machine. With a defence anchored by Mark Guehi and Ezri Konsa, and a safe pair of hands in Pickford or Trafford, England has no excuses left.
Don't give me excuses, give me results!
But standing in their way is a side that knows exactly how to navigate a tournament, Croatia. Since their independence, they've been a proper nightmare for the big boys, reaching the podium in 3 of their 6 appearances. This will be their 7th World Cup, and they're arriving with a massive emotional boost. It's the last dance for Luka Modric.
Y al final quiero decir una frase que ha visto y que me gusta mucho. No llores porque se terminó, sonríe porque sucedió. Hala Madrid y nada más. Gracias.
The Croatian maestro wants one last shift on the big stage, and his teammates are desperate to give him the send-off he deserves. Tactically, Croatia remains incredibly difficult to break down. They cruise through the qualifiers, unbeaten, and have a defensive spine that is elite. You've got Josip Stanisic at Bayern.
With the corner for Croatia, on by Stanisic.
The young giant Luka Vuskovic.
Evoga.
And the world-class Joško Gvardiol. In the creative department, Martin Baturina is currently bossing it in Serie A with Como, proving he's one of the best playmakers in the world right now. Never, under any circumstances, count the Croatians out. A step below the heavyweights, we have Ghana, a side that always makes life complicated with their physical and direct style of play. And then there's Panama, looking to make history in their very first World Cup appearance, with Carrasquilla hoping to pull off a miracle. Buckle up, because the tactical battles in Group L are going to be mental. The 2026 World Cup is officially ready to kick off.